All right. Hello, Rick Sanghera, the co-founders and CEO of AtaCor Medical. Boy, background, I've been in cardiac device space, implantable pacemakers and defibrillators for 25 or 26 years now. Continuing in that space now, I'll share a little bit about what we've been doing at AtaCor over the last few years and what we've got coming in front of us. So AtaCor is kind of revolutionizing, bringing the next generation of cardiac device platform to the market. We're an extravascular system, so instead of putting leads and wires inside the heart in the venous structure, we get them outside of that environment into a connective tissue above the heart. You can see a delivery tool here that's just adjacent to the sternum through a rib space. With that, we're doing temporary pacing leads, we're doing defibrillation leads, and we're going to be expanding into longer term use thereabout. But it really does create an entire platform for, as I said, the next generation of cardiac devices. First, we'll talk about defibrillation. It's a large market. It's existed for a long time. But again, what we've been trying to do is make these devices less invasive for patients, easier to put in, and get them outside of the cardiac environment where the heart's beating 100,000 times a day, 35 million times a year. Eventually physics wins. When we put something in the heart, it's just got to be subjected to all of that kind of flex fatigue. And so what we can do is put something just through a rib space, sits in the connective tissue above the heart, and connects into an existing ICD, an implantable defibrillator that's already on the market. So we take existing devices that are meant to be attached to leads inside the heart and effectively convert them and make an extravascular ICD system with them. So here you can see an image. The blue device is that extravascular ICD. The red device here in pictorial is showing our lead. Here I'll also walk you through an animation of how we put this device in. So using anatomical structures of the heart, so we can feel the rib cage around their sternum, feel for that rib space just above the xiphoid, and that's really where we're going to target our insertion. Here you can see our lead with a couple of different electrodes on it that allows us to sense the cardiac rhythms, and then coils to allow us to deliver energy as well. So here, looking at the anatomy, again, it's that rib space just adjacent to the sternum at the left sternal margin. We've got a delivery tool that facilitates entry into that target tissue, and then the lead is deployed in that kind of the space above the pericardium. So we do not invade the heart at all. With that lead, we can then tunnel it toward the lateral device pocket. That's very familiar to physicians now. And with that system, again, sense the cardiac signals, determine when we need to deliver a life-saving shock, and deliver that shock across the chest. And here you can see the tunneling procedure, and then finally the device implant as well. So all of this is meant to free the veins, free the heart from all the materials being inside. Here's an image of a lead. To date, we've been doing a lot of clinical work. As you can see here, we've done our first acute study. We've done our second acute study to study defibrillation energy, sensing capabilities, implant procedures. Already actually completed our first chronic evaluation. To date, we've done all of about 36 patients already, so we can absolutely tell you that there's plenty of energy in these standard ICDs to be able to connect to our lead and deliver life-saving shocks. We've done that already, and we're well on our way here. So our first kind of summary is acute data. You can see 94% lead deployment success with our Gen 1 system. That has taken about 13 minutes to put the lead in, and that includes the incision. So in the incision at the sternal margin, getting down to the tissue, deploying the lead, removing the tool for final lead position. We've been inducing VF, so we induce ventricular fibrillation in the operating room, sit back and let the devices recognize that device, deliver the energy through our lead, and every time we've done that with 4 different manufacturers now, that signal is sensed and automatically triggers the shock delivery. And there you can see our mean energies at 17.1 joules. Those in the space will recognize well within the capabilities of existing architecture. Most devices are about 40 joule systems now, so plenty of headroom for us there. We've just completed now our chronic data. That's not on the screen here yet. We'll be working towards publication of that data. So as we're going through the Series C milestones for defibrillation, you can see we'll be using funds as we're raising now to work towards a pilot study that'll start in the beginning of 2024. We're also a pacing company. As a startup, we've got 2 different platforms going, and today's pacemakers, as we look at them and think about temporary pacemakers, which are used in conjunction with other procedures or in the emergency room in the hospital, a few 100,000 cases a year in the US alone, with a high complication rate, so certainly room for improvement. In our system, again, it's implanted at that sternal margin through a simple incision. We can deliver the lead without fluoroscopy, so we can really reduce the complication of therapy delivery in the emergency department, as well as provide the high rate pacing and all the things that are needed with traditional, say, TAVI procedures. That creates a lot of value creation immediately, especially if we're in the operating room or the emergency department. The emergency department, we can shorten the time to deliver the important care that's needed for patients that are symptomatic and bradycardic when they come in. And without having to activate the cath lab after hours, saves us several $1,000s in deployment costs for the hospital. Switching over to TAVI procedures or other procedures that require temporary pacing, a big proposition there if we can allow us to ambulate patients after the procedure, get the patients out of the ICU beds as well. So thinking about all of our milestones here, on top we've got temporary pacing now, and we've talked about defibrillation to date. Now what we'll be working towards is our final research studies just completing now. We'll get to a pivotal study for this product next year, and that'll lead to a 510(k) submission because temporary pacing is class 2. So think about the total financing. To date, we've been blessed to be able to fundraise throughout the last several years through COVID as well. We're actually $43 million closed to date for both these product lines. These are large markets, lots of addressable market for both sides. You can see some great partners along the way. We've had a couple different corporate investors as well. And what we're looking to raise now with the milestones identified here, again, for EV-ICD or defibrillation, is getting to a pilot study in 2024, with temporary pacing leading all the way through our pivotal study and getting to FDA and CE mark clearance. Looking to raise $35 million now to take us through that horizon and complete it. So as we think about all the different platforms going forward, again, EV-ICD is a large market. It's established now, and we're facilitating a less invasive way for that therapy to be delivered. As we think about pacing, temporary pacing used in hospitals is an important part of our kind of platform and our strategy to start there from a regulatory point of view, prove the safetiness and efficacy of the pacing, and then move towards bridge pacing and permanent pacing. Bridge pacing being a 30-day device where we can just adhere that device to the skin and provide that kind of bridge to therapy, certainly after TAVI procedures, where now we're kind of immediately jumping into putting a permanent pacemaker in where the data is suggesting that thereafter we probably don't need that. And so we're kind of building towards a platform where we can kind of bridge towards a permanent device decision in a month. So with that, I'll end it there and happy to take questions after.